Well, welcome back to continue the discussion in Exodus chapter 9. This chapter brought us deeper into the spiritual and political drama unfolding between Pharaoh and the God of Israel. The escalation of the plagues in this passage isn't just about divine punishment, it's about divine revelation. In this session, we're going to look at the 5 key areas, the theological symbolism of livestock in Egyptian religion, and the meaning behind the soot and the furnace in the 6th plague. God's stated purpose for raising Pharaoh, the cultural significance of selective mercy during the hailstorm, and early emergence of God's universal mission in the Old Testament. So let's go deeper. Let's begin with the livestock. On the surface, it seems like a targeted economic hit, but there's far more happening. The Egyptians revered bulls, especially the Apis bull, as a symbol of divine strength and fertility. The Apis cult was centered in Memphis, where the bull was even embalmed and buried ceremonially. So when God strikes down Egypt's livestock while sparing Israel's, he's symbolically dismantling one of Egypt's central theological claims, that divine power resides in their cattle and gods of strength. This is not just an agricultural setback, it's a theological dethroning. Yahweh is showing he holds the power over life and death, not the bull gods of Egypt. The 6th plague, boils caused by soot, offers a deeply symbolic reversal. The furnace Moses draws the soot from likely represents the very brick culinus that enslaved the Israelites. In Egypt, fire and soot were the instruments of bondage. But here, God repurposes that same substance as a means of judgment. There's poetic justice here. What Pharaoh used to crush Israel is now used to afflict Egypt. Even more fascinating is that the soot becomes airborne, fine dust covering the land. That echoes back to Genesis 2 and 3, where the humans were made from dust and cursed to return to it. In a sense, Egypt's oppression of Israel is returning to them in a form of physical decay, a symbolic preview of death and brokenness. Now in verses 14 through 16, we encounter one of the most theologically charged declarations in the Exodus story. God says, "I have raised you up for this very purpose, that my name might be proclaimed in all the earth." The Hebrew root of raised up, himakadake, I don't even know if I got that right, I'm sorry if I messed that up. It implies intentional placement, almost like a stage being set. Pharaoh's role isn't incidental, it's instrumental. God isn't merely tolerating Pharaoh's resistance, he's using it to showcase divine power and justice. This concept of God using enemies to further his mission appears elsewhere in Scripture. Think of Babylon, Assyria, or even Judas. These aren't random villains. They become tools in God's grand narrative. That might make us uncomfortable, but it also reminds us that even defiance can be woven into redemption. The 7th plague, the hailstorm, offers a rare moment of grace. Before the storm comes, God gives a warning. He says, "Bring your people and animals into shelter." This moment is critical. It's the first time in the plague cycle where God gives Egypt a chance to respond and be spared. And some Egyptians listen. We read that those who feared the word of the Lord obeyed. This marks the beginning of a quiet shift. Egyptians are beginning to respond not just to fear, but to the authority of Yahweh's word. These aren't Israelites, they're outsiders, and yet they heed the divine warning. That's a powerful early glimpse of the idea that God's mercy isn't limited to Israel. It's available to anyone who listens. This ties directly into one of the most powerful theological ideas in this chapter, the global reach of God's name. When God says he wants his name proclaimed in all of the earth, he's hinting at something that won't fully unfold until centuries later. Israel was chosen, yes, but chosen to be a light to the nations. In Exodus 9, we get a glimpse of that global mission beginning to unfold. And remember, this isn't a peaceful missionary endeavor. It's born in the middle of conflict. That's often how truth enters the world, through shaking, through plagues, through disruption. Egypt had to be destabilized before it could be recognized, before it could recognize the true God. Let's pause here and talk briefly about the hardened heart of Pharaoh. Many people wrestle with why God would harden someone's heart. Earlier in Exodus, Pharaoh hardens his own heart, but by chapter 9, it's God doing the hardening. The Hebrew word used is hizak, which can mean to strengthen or to make firm. It doesn't always mean making someone evil. It can mean confirming them to the path they've already chosen. In that light, God isn't puppeteering Pharaoh. He's confirming a resistance that's already rooted in pride and rebellion. It's as if God is saying, you want to go this way? Then go all the way. Here, there's a sobering warning in that. Our repeated choices, if unrepentant, can become permanent trajectories. Another fascinating detail lies in verses 31 through 32, where we're told the flax and barley were destroyed, but the wheat was not. This agricultural note may seem random, but it tells us something vital. The judgment wasn't yet final. God was still leaving Egypt room to turn back. In Hebrew culture, this reflects the concept of mishpat, justice that is proportionate and instructive. God isn't swinging blindly in anger. He's measured. He leaves a remnant. He always leaves a door open. So what does all this leave us? Where does all this leave us? Exodus 9 shows a God who is more than a deliverer. He is a revealer of false gods, of the stubbornness of empire, and of the painful process through which hardened hearts might begin to tremble. It also shows that God's justice is not rushed. It's layered, intelligent, patient, and merciful, even in judgment. Maybe you've walked through seasons that felt like hailstorms, or maybe you've seen structures in your life that once seemed so powerful begin to collapse. This chapter reminds us that sometimes what looks like destruction is actually revelation. God might be tearing something down in order to show us who he really is. Thank you for staying with me through this continued discussion session. I know these conversations go deep, but I truly believe God meets us in that depth. If something in today's reflection stirred in your heart, or if you noticed something I didn't cover, I'd love to hear it from you in the comments. Place it. This space is for all of us to learn, to question, and to grow together. I'm honored to walk through this journey with you. Stay rooted in his story, and I'll see you in the next chapter.